Hey, welcome to Late Night with Larry. I'm your host, Larry D. I'm here with my co-host, Vince. Vince, give him a shout out.
Hey, what's up? Welcome back.
Here we are once again, and tonight we think we are going to talk about, it's in our area of New Mexico, and it's been a legend, folklore, since probably thousands of years. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know thousands, but maybe hundreds of years since this has been settlement in New Mexico. But we want to talk about the LLorona.
Yeah, and he's not referring to my ex-wife. He's talking about folklore.
That's right. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. Recently, Hollywood made a movie about the LLorona, and I watched it, and I didn't really think it was that good. They portrayed the LLorona as demonic and wanting to just kill everyone she saw, and that's not how the folklore truly goes. We were raised here in New Mexico in the Southwest, and we were always told as children that when the sun went down, we needed to get inside, especially if we lived by a river or where water flowed or
water source, basically.
A water source, basically.
Yeah.
And the thing was, get inside or the LLorona will get you.
Yep, and growing up hearing those stories as children, it frightened us. It definitely kept us in line. We came home when we were supposed to, most of the time.
Yeah, and it did. And I will say, growing up, my mom used to say, get inside or the LLorona will get you.
Yep.
As soon as I heard that, I would stop in my tracks and say, oh, I would turn around and bolt to the door. Here I come. I would come directly inside. And I'm not going to lie, there's one time in my life when we were outside, and while the sun was up, we were still talking. Big men, little kids, yeah, I'm not afraid of the LLorona, let her come. But when that sun came down and I went inside, we talked about it so much. As I was taking a bath that night, getting ready for bed, I started crying, the LLorona, she's going to get me. So...
yeah, it's pretty powerful when you're that young,
It is.
Well, speaking of powerful, how about we have a drink?
Sure. I got my big sipper Merlot here going.
You got the big sipper.
The big sipper. Does anybody know about the big sipper?
We will find out about the big sipper.
Oui, oui.
And I got me some Coors Light.
We all know that, Cowboy Coors.
Mm-hmm. And to all of you who don't like it, here it goes.
There you go. So as we were saying, we grew up with this folklore, and it's interesting how it's been passed down from generation to generation to generation.
Yes.
Now, I don't think in today's world, unless you're a traditional Hispanic family, that it gets passed down, because I really didn't tell my kids about it.
Right, no. And here in the South Valley, I don't know. I don't hear a whole lot about it, but I'm not really in touch with the youth. So,
Right.
I mean, my kids never mention it to me from their friends.
Right.
I think more over here it's the kukui.
The kukui. Well, we all have our folklore. But here's my thing. Growing up, where did this come from? Is it real?
That's interesting because I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but let's just start with what do we know about it? What we were told was it was a lady who drowned her children, correct?
That's right.
And she was cursed, and she was, I guess, part of her curse was to roam the earth until she finds them.
That's what it was, yes. And the movie did get some portion of the folklore right. So she married the most handsome man in her village. She caught him with another woman. They had 2 children. So she was so angered that she wanted to get revenge on him, and she did it by drowning the children. And that's why they say if you're by the arroyo, the lake, or a source with water, sometimes you'll hear her crying.
Right, and that's what I was going to add. I remember crying being part of that.
Right. That's a big part. They said that's how you know the LLorona is around, that you hear her crying. Now, we did talk about it briefly in a previous episode when we were talking about hauntings, and we did say that at one time our grandmother said that she heard her. and she swears that it was her because it was a loud crying that went by her bedroom window. And she said the next morning she told our mother that she heard the Llorona. She was looking for her kids around here. So,
yeah. And like here in Albuquerque and where we grew up in Gallup, there's a lot of arroyos, and that's one of the things. Stay out of there when there's water. I mean, it's common. I mean, it's just common sense. You want the kids not to play there because it's dangerous. But
Right.
I think the Llorona is used as an extra precaution to keep them away from those arroyos.
Right.
Just like we grew up in Gallup, we have the Rio Puerco running right through Gallup. And when we were very young, I was too young to remember, but we lived right next to it, correct?
We did, and it did flood, and that's what destroyed our property there. And I used to play on the banks of it when I was young, real young, but we didn't stay out after dark because of the Llorona.
Right. Now, it's the Rio Puerco, but we all in Gallup just know it as the Perky.
Yeah, we called it the Perky. Now here's my thing. I have friends that are from up north, northern New Mexico, southern New Mexico, and they've all been told the same tale about the Llorona. How if you're out after dark, she'll come after you. Now, I have one friend in particular that I worked with, and he's from up northern New Mexico, and he swears that one night him and his brother were out playing by an arroyo, and they heard crying. And he swears that he saw a white figure out there. And he tells me, I saw the Llorona. I swear I saw her.
Wow.
So my thing is it just folklore or is it real? Now, I'm going to take his word on it because he saw something.
Right.
He's a pretty reputable guy. So the thing is, has anyone else seen her?
Right. I'm sure if we dig hard enough, we could find somebody who at least thinks they've seen her.
Right.
Now, I in an earlier podcast, I mentioned that I heard crying that night in my house in Gallup, and the lady in Zuni told me it was a dead crying because I live close to a cemetery, but could it have also been the Llorona? Because like we said, the Perky runs right through Gallup, and it's a few blocks from that house I lived in.
But also look at the house that you lived in. You had an arroyo maybe a quarter mile away.
Oh, that's true, right behind the school.
That's right.
I forgot about that. And growing up, there was a ditch behind the elementary school we went to, and we used to play in it as kids.
We did. So there again, was it crying of the Llorona you heard, or was it something else?
That's debatable,
It
because I really to this day don't know what it was. I know it rattled me. It scared me.
Well, see there again, and no one could say where she shows up.
Right.
As the tale says, she wanders. But here's the other interesting thing. Every culture has a story of something similar to the Llorona.
Yes.
So is it just a myth, or is it something that truly happened and it got passed down from generations?
I think in all these myths or folklore, all these stories, there's got to be a grain of truth to them. That's how they got started.
That's exactly, and I agree. Myths, stories, they get started from actual events.
Right.
And as time goes on, the story gets passed on, and some things will change, but they try and keep it as accurate as they can.
Yes. Now, that night I heard the crying at my house. Like I said, when I cracked the curtain open, it stopped, but I never actually looked outside.
Right.
And I don't know, I guess I really didn't want to know what it was.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But this is an interesting subject, and we grew up with it all our lives. And I would like to maybe do some further research. Now, everyone's going to say, oh, in today's world, it's just folklore. It's, that's just what they told the kids to get them in. But let's think about that. Now we have all these programs on TV about paranormal, caught on camera, and
Right.
and all these, which actually show some. I don't know if they're Photoshop, but some of the footage is pretty creepy and
Yes.
pretty crazy.
Now, in today's society, they got them thinking that if you can't explain it with science, it's not real.
That's right. Or it's Photoshopped, or it's fake.
Right.
And not to get off the subject of the Llorona, but I was watching one of these programs, and they showed a little doll, and they said, pay attention to the doll as the girl was holding her. And supposedly this doll was possessed. So the little girl was talking, holding, and you slowly saw the doll's head turn and look at her. And I thought, wow, now, is that real or is it
right
special effects?
Right. And that's interesting because, I mean, there's just so much out there we don't know, we don't understand. People think they understand. They think they got it all figured out, but I don't believe that.
I don't either, because this world's so full of unexplained anomalies.
Right. I mean, like, not to get off subject again, but like the 0 point energy thing, where we're surrounded by energy in the universe.
Totally.
And the theory is, what is our souls? Nothing but energy. And you can't make it or you can't lose it. It just changes form in the.
That's right. And now that you say that, it's vibration as well. So we vibrate at a certain frequency while we're alive, and when we die, does that vibration change and take us to another dimension?
Maybe the frequency changes.
It could.
Or maybe since we no longer need our body, we could mess with the frequency, and that's how we get our paranormal sightings. They come back to visit in our realm.
So let's take that, what we just said now, the frequency. Now, once this lady died, her children, she killed them. Once she died, of course, she probably mourned, because she regretted it in the folklore. She mourned her children the rest of her life. So once she died, she entered into a new dimension.
Yes.
As we say, another portal, another reality,
right,
which the veil in front of us, we can't see because we're at this particular vibration.
Right. It's just like we're vibrating at this frequency. We're on a different channel.
So then does she enter our vibration every now and then, looking for her children?
That's what I was getting at right there.
So let's think about that for a minute. And you out there, you decide. But that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah, and what do you think? Do you want to sway us one way or another? We'd like to hear what you think. This is very interesting, and like we were talking about the Llorona, we don't have all the facts or everything. We're just going by what we were told, what we remember as children. But, I mean, if you were told something different, we'd love to know,
I would, and if you guys have a folklore similar to the Llorona, and let's say you live up in the Tennessee mountains, the Appalachians, if you live in somewhere in Europe or somewhere and you have a similar idea, shoot us an email, man. I want to know your folklore.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep it on this subject for right now. We just wanted to briefly touch that. And it was for someone that was interested in the Llorona. So, Lori, shout out to you. There you go.
Shout out, Lori. Thanks for the input.
Right. And we may dig deeper into this subject and bring you some more information later. But we're going to keep it on the paranormal right now.
Yep, and you know what? That's where we live. It's rich in paranormal stories. People would even say paranormal activity. I mean, those of us who have experienced it.
It is, and I know we've talked about skinwalkers, but I just want to tell you all, as well as my brother, that I was recently introduced to a story from some people in Farmington, and they were out one night and they were drinking, having their good old time doing what good old boys do. Well, they took a road on the reservation which they weren't supposed to take. And among them was a Caucasian, a white friend. He was with some natives, and the natives said, we shouldn't go down this road. And he said, why not? Let's go. There's nothing down here to be afraid of. So they reluctantly followed, and they drove down the road. Well, as they were out hanging around, lo and behold, they heard some noise. And it was a skinwalker. They didn't know what to do except get frightened at first. And once they knew it was a skinwalker, they got in their vehicle and they proceeded to leave the area at a high rate of speed, is what they said. Such a high rate of speed that they got pulled over the way. Now, they were in 2 cars, and the second car called them and said, you need to go faster, because it's catching up. So eventually they were on this road, and once they hit another road, there was a Navajo Nation police officer who pulled them over. Now, you would think a police pulling someone over going that fast is going to say, I'm not buying your bullshit. But once they explained to this officer what they were running from, and it's here somewhere around us, even now, this officer told him, follow me, I'll escort you, we need to get out of here. So they proceeded to just high rate of speed get out of the area they were in.
Yeah.
And this is from the white guy's side. Once he said they saw the lights of Farmington, he said his heart dropped. He was never relieved more than... He never felt relief more in his life. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's interesting, especially when a non-native gives their perspective like that, and it lines up with what the natives say.
Exactly.
Now, getting back on the skinwalker, we can't give the name or anything like that, but we have a Native American brought a picture to our attention. And supposedly one of his family members took this picture, and it's of a skinwalker. And now they claim it's legitimate. I looked at it, and it's just one of the creepiest damn things I ever seen in my life.
It is. You're right. We looked at that picture, and I wish we could share it. I really wish we could. But the thing that stood out to me is the body was definitely animal.
Right.
I
Coyote, wolf, or something.
I want to say coyote. It was definitely coyote. But what caught me, it was on the hind legs moving, but the arms.
Yeah.
Those were not arms of a coyote.
The arms were bone.
They were bone. Yeah. There was no flesh on the arms. They were bone. And I was like, what in the world?
Yeah, it was just a creepy looking thing. It was, you could see it's right next to the road, and you could see the vantage point. They took the picture from a vehicle.
It was interesting, and I stared at that picture for like 5 minutes off and on, and I tried to process it, and I just couldn't. What caught me was the arms. The arms were totally bone, and I couldn't absorb it. I couldn't process it.
Right.
It was just crazy.
Now, the person, even the family that brought it to our attention, I believe they're pretty credible.
They are credible.
They're good people. We know the whole family.
We've known them all our life.
But that picture really threw me for a loop. I mean,
it did.
If it's authentic like they say it is, oh man, that blows everything out of the water. I was always on the fence about shapeshifters and skinwalkers, but if that's authentic, I'm a believer.
And it is, and to them it's the natives that practice the dark arts, the black magic, and they trusted us. And they allowed us to see it because we're so close to them. But they did say one thing, that, we're going to let you see it, but
we can't send it to you. We can't share it.
Yes, we can't share it. And I respected that because of their beliefs.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about it, when you share it, you only give it power.
Right. And we talked about this in an earlier podcast about how Native Americans don't want to discuss a lot of their culture or their beliefs until you gain their trust.
Right.
And we have gained the trust. That's why we were shown the picture. But they trust us because they know we won't break their trust.
And I won't. And those of you that are out there saying, oh, yeah, you're full of shit. Yeah, that's all right. I don't care if you believe me or not. What we saw, we know we saw.
Right.
And I invite you to come out to the Southwest. Contact me, and I'll take you out to some of these reservation lands late at night.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are. I guarantee you're going to feel creepy, and you're going to feel scared, and you're going to say, okay, I believe you. Let's get out of here.
Yep. I have one of my good friends. I've been trying to get him to come and talk with us on the podcast. He lives here. He's just really busy. But his brother's the one who has a Native American friend with property up here. And he saw he said it was a Sasquatch on his property, and he said anytime we want to go camp there or use his property, we can, to go what we call squatching.
Right.
But he said he won't go.
And that tells you something when they won't go.
Yeah.
They've experienced something that's to them life-changing where they want no part of it.
Right. But, and, here in Albuquerque, we have, I've never been on the ghost tours. I want to go.
I think we should go.
We should go. They have a walking ghost tour down in Old Town. Then we have the Park Hotel was
I've been to the Park Hotel many times. That was a sane asylum.
Right.
And they keep it kind of, and what's cool about it is they keep it padded. It's still, the elevator's padded, and there's still, the gurneys are tables only lowered, and the light bulbs it is cool. But you still get a creepy feeling in there.
Yeah. And, it's strange, but I've had an experience in the hospital, in the UNM hospital.
Right.
I was in the restroom. When we've had family members there, we've been there. We spent late nights there.
I remember.
I went into the restroom alone. I was washing my hands, and then I heard somebody walking around the restroom behind me. There was no one there, but I heard that.
I remember you coming out and asking if any of us were in there.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, you were in there alone.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I swear someone was in there walking around.
Yeah.
I mean, but that could make sense because
in the hospital, yeah.
It's a hospital. How many people have died there? And let's take it back to what separates us, that vibration, that veil. Once they die, it's possible that if they lowered the vibration, they come back into our plane, out of their plane.
Right.
And that's all that apparitions and ghosts really are.
Right. And now maybe the ones that are stuck here, maybe they're kind of in a vibration in between.
Right. And it can be. And now that we're talking about apparitions, I showed my brother, there's some people that used to live here in New Mexico, and they have a paranormal show on YouTube.
Yes.
And I told my brother, check this out. So one of them sat on the bed with the REM pod, and clear as day, the camera caught a woman appearing right behind him, next to him, sitting down, and then it disappeared.
It was that blew me away because that was plain as day.
And I don't want to mention the show because I don't know if I have permission, if it's copyrighted, but I'll try and reach out to them, and if they let me, I'd like to give them a shout out because they definitely are in Florida and they're looking at some definitely haunted places.
And it's pretty cool because their production is excellent. They don't have a big TV studio or whatever on their side, but they're doing it all themselves, but they do excellent work.
They do. Some of the most convincing work. I'd say their work is better than some of these big productions.
Yeah, that apparition of that lady's the whole head, the face, that's one of the best I think I've ever seen.
I'm going to agree. And it was just off their little camera they were using, and I can't argue with that. Yeah,
that was good. Yeah, hopefully they'll you can get in touch with them, and maybe they'll even call in and talk about it.
Yeah, and one of someone I know close, they said if they contact them, they're definitely going to give them my information, and I would love to get in contact with them, and we'll get an interview with them.
Yeah,
because they're doing some amazing work down in Florida. Yep. And it's just crazy that we don't think about it. We go through our life, and you could be living next to or with someone in the same place that there's just hauntings going on, but you ignore them. You think it's the house creaking and cracking.
Right. Now, one theory is that maybe they feed off your reaction or whatever. It gives them energy, something. But
I'm sure it does.
They said that, like, if you ignore them, they don't bother with you.
Yes. Yeah, well, because they have a message that they want to get. I believe that, unless they truly are demonic, which I do believe there are demonic entities that are out to get you. They're not benevolent, they're malevolent. And they want to cause harm, disrupt your life. They want to kill you.
Right.
These entities that just want your attention to possibly just, and a lot of them, that's why these psychics say, well, once the murder's solved, they move on.
Or once they get their message to somebody.
They move on, yeah.
Right, because they're tied to this place because maybe unfinished business.
Right. They're not ready to go until they have closure.
And some of them are so attached to their house.
Or their property,
or an object.
Yes. An object, yes. Speaking of object, there was another little story that I saw that this man bought a little object box in an antique store. Now, this box had a Jewish prayer in the back of it, and he thought nothing of it. He thought, well, I don't speak Jewish. It's just a box. But once he bought it for a gift for a family member. But once the box got opened, first it opened in his house, and then strange things started happening to him, and he just blew it off. But he gave the box to his mom. She then had a stroke.
Wow.
And while she was recovering from the stroke, she couldn't speak, but she had an alphabet board that she could spell letters out, and she told him, gift, no good, take it. She didn't want the box in her house no more. So then he gave it to his brother, and his brother started having issues, brought it back. So he finally took it back to the antique dealer he bought it from, and they didn't want it back. So he sold it to a couple, and they kept it. Once he sold it, everything stopped for about 8 months. One day he got a package, and guess what it was?
From the couple.
Yes, the box. They said, don't worry about refund. We don't want this. And people would have the same dreams, everything. But there was an entity attached to that box that was not good.
Right.
It was not kind.
Wow. And now maybe was that prayer how they trapped it in there maybe?
I was going to say, because we've all seen these scary movies about boxes with entities in them, and this was real true to life. And I'm going to say those things exist. They exist. Let's look at the Annabelle movie. That doll it's true. That doll exists.
Right. I saw a movie. I can't remember what it was, about a couple months ago on Netflix. It was about a psychiatrist, and they were checking out this guy. They thought he had multiple personalities. Right. But the thing is, when he would switch from one person to another, one person was paralyzed. When he switched to the other, he could get up and walk. And the thing that was weird is they do x-rays on the one that's paralyzed, and his spine was fucked up. And then when he'd switch, they'd x-ray him again, and it was fine.
So
what it came back to is like there was a lady who cursed him, and she had this power. She would heal people, but she would suck their souls out and put them in a box for safekeeping, and then give them their souls back. Yeah. But his curse was, he was like a safe haven. Souls would enter him.
Oh man! And no, I believe that stuff is true.
Yeah, and like I said, all this it starts from somewhere. There's got to be some truth somewhere.
There does. It's out there, and it is true. It is true. I mean, so many people just want to blow it off and think, oh no.
Science don't explain that.
Well, here's my thing. I think we take a lot of this and we pass it off as mental illness.
Yes.
But we don't know that person's background. We don't know the history of that. Unless you know that kid and you've seen that kid from day one that it was mental illness.
Right. Now along that lines, there's a person in our family. She was like, I guess she was sensitive. She could see dead people, and she could see stuff like that. Now, after trips to the doctors and stuff, it's a chemical imbalance in her brain.
That's right. But here's the thing. That person was totally fine. And one day she just flipped the switch.
Oh, no, I'm talking about a different person.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that one is totally cuckoo.
Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking this one, but that one also was perfectly fine. Yeah. And a flip just got switched. Now, I'm not going to say that that's a chemical balance.
Well, the thing about that person is she did good through high school, star athlete. She moved to Albuquerque for a while.
Right.
And they don't know what happened to her. They're thinking maybe a traumatic experience, because after that's when that switch flipped when she moved back and was never the same again.
But what kind of traumatic
See,
experience?
that nobody knows.
There again, she was a heavily religious person as
Yes.
well. So, yeah, okay. We're talking about two different people, but
Yeah.
okay, so we got some cuckoos in our
Yeah.
family. So.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the one that could see spirits, just like our native relative,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
like that, people want to already, pass them off as crazy and a chemical imbalance because
No.
these spirits don't exist. You're just...
No. To me, those are people that are on the verge of the other veil. Because I don't dismiss that.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you right now, all of you out there, I am a Christian. I believe in Christ and I believe in what the Bible says. But the deeper we dig, it makes you think.
Right. No, but I believe in like heaven and earth, but who says they can't get stuck, in between?
Well, here's my thing. If you believe in the Bible, then you believe in demons.
Right.
And so many people just pass it off as demons. I'm like, not everything can be demonic. Because some of these spirits that haunt your house that take the energy and they throw your plates around and whatnot, they're not demonic because they're not manifesting demonic properties where they're choking you at night or
trying to possess you.
That's right.
The doors opening, the plates, I think it's trying to get your attention.
And I believe that they want, whether it be help to cross the other side or help to get,
Or they want closure or something.
Closure is my big thing. Is closure. I believe in closure. And yes, when you die, what do they say? Go to the light.
Yes. And like they say, some people are so attached to their house that, like, if you start remodeling, it'll stir up the paranormal activity.
Right.
For instance, the Winchester house. You've heard of the Winchester mansion?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you know the rifle Winchester, right?
Right.
Well, supposedly the Winchester family believed they were cursed because their guns have killed so many people.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if they went to a medium or somebody, a psychic, told them the only way they could keep the curse at bay was to keep adding on to the house. So that mansion, the Winchester mansion, has hallways, stairways that lead nowhere. They just kept construction going until the Winchester widow passed away.
I mean, if that's true, then Anheuser-Busch family better look out.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that kind of makes sense. You created something that takes life, doesn't give or benefit.
But it's a tool like anything else. You could take a life with a rock.
You can. So, but if that's true, what is causing that?
Yeah, I don't know, but supposedly it's still haunted by the Winchester family.
That's interesting.
You need to research that one.
Maybe, yeah, that's a new one for me. I do. So this world is full of so many paranormal activities that we don't know.
Right, and just because we can't explain them don't mean we should write them off.
That's right, and not everything is demonic. I'm not going to go that route. I'm not.
I mean, yeah, there's been instances of children,
Of course. And I mean, we see these videos on YouTube and on Facebook, and I've seen some that are pretty cool where a person's walking and you see the entity leave that person and enter the other entity. But I'm like, okay, is that true? And today, with all our CGI and our Photoshop and everything, I'm not going to say it's a lie, and I don't dismiss anything.
Right, but it's interesting, but unless we experience it for ourselves, we can't get behind it 100%. Say this video is real, or
we can't. And here's my thing: we did earlier when we started this podcast, we did give our personal experiences,
right?
And that I can get behind.
Yes.
And that's why I don't throw anyone when they say they've had an experience. I don't throw it out because I've had my own personal.
Now, when I first started watching these paranormal shows, I was always on the fence about the orbs, and because it could be dust or whatever.
And that's what they say.
But you and I saw some of the best orbs I've ever seen recorded from a doorbell camera at one of our family members' house.
We have, and I don't know how to explain that.
Those orbs were clear as day, and just the path, because they both kind of...
They came out of the wall.
They came out of the wall. One went on a straight path. The other one kind of took off after the other orb.
Yeah, it kind of lingered and then went on its way.
Yeah.
So, but what were they doing? What orbs were they, and what were they doing there?
Well, I believe it was somebody checking on that person, because if you recall, not long after that person found out she had cancer.
Yeah, you are correct.
So who knows? Who knows? It could have been a family member or two checking up on her, and
it could have been. And we're proud to say today that person's cancer free.
Yep.
Thank God.
Thank God.
And yeah, orbs, they're seen in the forest. I mean, look, we were watching Expedition Bigfoot, and look at the orbs that were in the forest there.
Yeah, that's that one was hard to explain, because, supposedly they were out in the middle of nowhere, no man's land.
That's right. So what's there? Although there was a cemetery.
Right.
So,
but it was an old one, and it's weird, because it just... The children, it was all children.
All children that died.
And a lot of them under 2 years old.
And what did she say one night? She heard children cry.
The night before, laughing. Children laughing outside her tent.
Right? So, I don't dismiss any of these stories. I don't say people are full of shit or they're crazy. I just won't do it because I've had my own, as my brother has.
Yep.
And that's what we wanted to share with you guys tonight. This may not have been the most exciting podcast, but it's one we wanted to share.
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's why we started this podcast, to talk about things that interest us, and hopefully you're interested in a lot of the same things.
I hope you are. And if you have a story, don't be afraid to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. We're not going to criticize you. We're not going to judge you.
Maybe one day we'll even do a podcast about our excursions abroad when we're in the military. And that'll be adults only. We'll talk about that later.
That's 21 and over, Vince.
That's what is it? NC-17.
Anyway, thanks for listening and joining us tonight. We hope you keep following us. And if you like what you heard, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to get in touch with us with the story, here's how you do it. Email us at latenightwithlarry55@gmail.com.
You guys, peace out.
Peace.